So you want to, because it's going to shrink slightly, ever so slightly when it dries. So you want to fill it in quite a bit, and it literally is just as simple as get it out the tub and whack it on. So you can buy filler that you have to mix up, but then the reason I don't use that is because once you've mixed it, you've got to find something to use it for or throw it away. So I buy ready mixed stuff, so I just use what I want, and hopefully I can use it before it goes mouldy, which happens when you don't put the lid back on properly, which I obviously hadn't done last time.
It was about 8 years old.
Yeah, we had it a little while. So I bought another big tub because you can get it in smaller amounts, but I bought a big tub like this because we've got some MDF fantasy terrain that I want to get built up at some point. Right. So we're going to leave a little bit of that stone there in the middle around his feet, but we are going to just put a little tiny smidge more in. Oh, it's really bright. Sorry about the light, everybody.
Well, I thought we used white.
Yeah, just smear a bit of it over the top of that base, so he's got like a little bit of stonework showing, but not a lot.
Tony says, are you using wall filler?
Yep, I certainly am. Interior ready mixed filler, Tony. Hi Goblin Squire, how you doing? Right then, so we've got a nice dollar fall in there, technical term, obviously, and you can see how it's gone quite smooth. Now what we're going to do is we're going to leave this a little while, and I'm going to come back to this, and then we're going to get an old brush and kind of agitate that surface a little bit before we do anything to it.
Crazy Fish says, cling film over the tub before the lid goes back on, keeps it from drying. Good tip. Ours hadn't dried out. Ours was just ridiculously old and had gone mouldy.
Yeah.
But it was really old.
Right, so we're finished with that for a moment, so we're just going to whack that over there. And then what I'm going to do is show you how I base some of my other figures. So we'll come back to these guys in a moment. So just for dead easy basing of Games Workshop figures. So these are the Death Courts of Krieg. They still need a little bit of work, but we're going to put some basing material on. Dead simple for these chappies. So we're going to use some Vallejo Fantasy Tufts in blue because I want them to look suitably sci-fi. So I'm going to just pluck off one of these and stick that on his base somewhere over there. Now these are quite large, so once we've finished sticking the other basing material on and it's all dry, I figured that I could go back with a little pair of scissors and just have a little trimming the bush to make it not quite so large.
I don't know why you looked at me then.
I don't know.
They are self-adhesive, these
They
tips,
are.
aren't they?
They
And
are
also
self-adhesive.
using PVA to give them extra stick.
Yeah, so
How are you doing that?
so they're self-adhesive, as you may have seen. So I used a pair of tweezers to stick them on, and once you stick it on, it has got quite a good grab. Now, what I've got in this tub here is just some PVA glue mixed with a little tiny bit of water, so it gets a quite a thin consistency. And then we're just going to paint that onto the base and up to the edges of that tuft, so it'll help it adhere a little bit more. And run it around his feet. Without blathering it all over his legs. There we go, just like that. And then I'm going to get our little tub of sand. So this is regular rocky hobby sand, which is available from a whole array of manufacturers: Army Painter, Colourforge, Warlord Games, Green Stuff World. Just a regular basing sand, and you can use whatever colour you like for this. So just stick him in there, give him a bit of a shake around, a tap off, and then gently rub any excess from around the edges, and there we go. So, and then the next step to do here would be to paint the edge of the base. So here's one I prepared earlier. So this chap is one that I've done. So obviously, like I said, the figure itself needs just a little bit of finishing, but having a painted rim on the bases that matches across your army really can just tie everything together, even if your paint job isn't like a masterclass job. You can really make your army look effective if they're all based the same way. So that's pretty simple. Now what you can do is you can paint the sand should you really wish to, or like I'm going to do with these guys, you can just leave it so they're on an alien world with these blue tufts and it's like a really sandy ground, and that should, once I've highlighted the clothes up a little bit, should look quite effective. Thanks Moxie. I know I've been practicing it all day, Crafty. Here's one I prepared earlier. Right, so this is my generic tub of sand. We'll stick that out of the way for the moment, and then we're going to go on to these other figures that we've done for the past couple of weeks. Anybody got any questions about what we've done so far? And I realise that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour of like 2 different things we've done so far. Excuse me. Right, let's get our painting palette in. I'm going to do this Zombie Ogre's base. So, this is the chap that I did before. Now, I know that this surface is cracked, but we're going to treat it exactly the same as we're going to treat this guy once he's dry. So, I've painted it black over the top, which is what I would do with the white over here. Painted it black, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dry brush it with some stone grey. So this is Reaper Stone Grey. We're just going to give it a heavy dry brush of that all over. Wherever I've put my dry brush. So we're going to dry brush it so it picks out all the little lumps and bumps in the texture, and I'm going to do it grey because I want it to look like stone, because this guy might be either in some kind of wilderness area or down in a dungeon, the zombie ogre. So I like to do my bases for monsters generally grey with maybe a couple of little tiny tufts, so it could be used for just about any setting. So just loading the brush up with a bit of paint and then getting on this bit of tissue here and just getting like the excess off, the really moist bits, and then just liberally applying it. So we want, because it's painted pure black, the base, just want it to be quite a heavy brushing over the top, like so. And then so this, I put this stuff on last night, and as it's dried, it cracked more than I expected, to be fair. But it has shrunk slightly. So normally I would like my bases not to have this kind of revealed lip around the edge, but I figured it would take too long to dry if I loaded it up with a bit more basing material. So I'm gonna live with it on this occasion. If I'd have used the filler, I don't think it would be so bad, but this was a Grelin Badlands from Citadel. So I'm just going to do the other two figures as well while we're on, and we've got the paint out. In fact, I'm going to get a fresh piece of tissue. That piece is rubbish. So this is just regular kitchen roll from the supermarket. Anything like that. I also have, but it's just out of reach at the moment, I have a kind of piece of debris 3D printed stone floor that I sometimes use when I'm dry brushing to get the paint off the edge of the brush. If you've seen our video on Tesseract Glow, you will have seen that piece featured, because we painted different sections of it with different base coats to see how the Tesseract Glow and Hexwraith Flame appeared over different colours. Had a starring roll, a bit of scrap plastic. Haven't quite fixed the eyes on this these two ladies yet. I've got as far as painting them back in white after I've painted half their faces white. Because Wicked D redeemed Paint Like Candy just as I was about to paint their eyes. Most unfair of her. Crafty Gobbo has redeemed Hydrate. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm onto water now. That was the last mouthful of coffee. Does it count as hydrating if it's coffee?
Yeah. Otherwise Hamish is really in trouble.
Yeah, I suppose it counts as hydrating when it's beer, doesn't it?
I don't know about that one. Go on then, what are you doing?
So, there we go. That's a coat of stone grey on all of those three. And then, Tony has redeemed Hat Me! Right, so we're going to switch to a different dry brush, because that one is now a wet brush. And we'll go to the next stage. So then we go to Weathered Stone from Reaper, which is a lot lighter grey. And it's got a little blockage on the end.
And how do you deal with it?
So in this case, it's a little bit of hard paint. I've just pulled it off, and it's going to squidge out. But normally, I would get my pokey tool, which is a dressmaking pin, and we'd just give it a good pokey through there. So you can buy official pokey tools made by Reaper Miniatures. Oh, thank you. Oh. I've spent a lot of time hunched over today, so that's excellent, thank you. Right then, so we're going to get this dry brush out. This is a Citadel small dry brush that I've had for a long time. This isn't one of my makeup brush dry brushes. So, because it's now wet, so I'm not using the same brush, because this brush that I've just used, I washed it out and it is now wet. But so, Weathered Stone on there. I'm sat on the ribbon, it's making the hat it's making the hat move. this hat has got a long.
You like my sound effects, Tony?
Yeah. This hat's got a long piece of ribbon on it, and when I sit up straight, it makes the or when I lean forward, sorry, it makes the hat feel like it's pulling back on my head. Well, yeah, who needs a soundboard when you've got
when you've got a nutty wife?
Yeah. So while I'm painting these, Mrs MLG is very, very kindly taking care of some more of our kill team scenery and doing an amazing job on it too. So there we go. So this is a little all over heavy brush of weathered stone, so you can see how light that is in patches, and that's pretty good. Quite happy with that. And then, so you can go heavier if you wish to make your bases lighter, but this looks fine to me. We might stick an odd little tuft on here as well. And if you want to do like splodges of blood or anything else, in fact maybe we might do a little splodge of blood on the ogres just to show you how you might do that. Gone a little bit too heavy there. I didn't get enough paint off the brush. That's why I don't use this brush very often, because it's not as easy as the others. But there on the back, I wouldn't think that might be our target spot for a tuft and mask that bit of a heavy blitz there. Let's just do Sinister. And then all I've got to do is paint these girls' eyes, and then they're ready to submit for the RCL. Yeah, right, so there we go. Oh. Right, so we're just going to I'll wash that brush out as well. I know it's hot down. Okay. Have I had this on for a minute yet? Would a different colour base show through the cracks of Badlands? Do you mean so down in? Well, I actually painted black into them, but yeah. So if you mean like this. So this is this Tesseract Glow?
It's Tesseract Glow and X-Ray.
Tesseract Glow and Hex-Ray Flame mixed together that Mrs MLG has done, and then this is one that Mrs MLG has done with like a lava, so she painted it red and orange and yellow. And then these are Mordant Earth, aren't they?
Yeah, they're like
So this is
that.
Citadel.
Yes. The answer is yes.
Yeah, Mordant Earth. So yeah, it just depends on how thickly you put it on and how whether you do anything else with it. So in my case, I wanted to use the Badlands stuff. Yeah, they look really good, don't they? Moxie says, wow.
My TikTok shows how to do those.
Yeah, so Mrs MLG has done a TikTok showing how to produce these wonderful effects.
Probably on YouTube.
They look awesome. And then you've just done this one, haven't you? This is
no one's seen that one yet.
Frosty Snow Base. That looks pretty cool.
I can't get it to not be bright.
It's reflecting off the lights, and unfortunately, I'll have to take that off.
Yeah.
Cool. So Frosty Snow Base, and then we've also got a couple of samples of marble texture type base from with the wet wipe thing, expanded wet wipey job. They look pretty pretty awesome as well. Crazy Fish says, I got a UV light off you in my last order, and now I've fallen back in love with Tesseract Glow. I do like it. It's fantastic. I really hope that GW do like a fluorescent orange or something like that. It'd be really great to get a couple of different colours for eye lenses and stuff like that. I think it works fantastic for those, but you can't just give everything neon green, can you? Right, have you got the tiny tufts over your side, Madam?
I always put my toys away when I...
What? Yeah, I don't know where they are. I was gonna use the tiny tufts. Don't know what we've done with them.
In the tuft cupboard in the kitchen.
Would you go and grab them?
Oh, I thought you were ready.
I know. Well, I thought they were there. I thought they were on the air because that's where they normally are. They're normally on there.
That's not put in the wank.
Yeah, so if glowing orange would be great with noise marines, I completely agree. I think that would be fantastic. Glowing orange would be great with almost everything. Would be absolutely fantastic. So you should really, if you haven't already, check out our TikTok. Mrs MLG produces some absolutely fantastic content on our TikTok video.
Oh, look at that fan.
Yes, it is. So it's
Absolutely fantastic. I do try and put them on YouTube.
right then, so these are Gamer's Grass Tiny Tufts, and I really like these because they are very, very small. 2mm is the thing. So I like to use, as you can tell by how many are missing compared to the lighter colour, I like to use the dark moss colour. I think it works pretty well, especially for dungeon type settings like I want to do on this chap's base. So I'm going to go with some of these. On these ladies.
No, they're mine, Crafty, they're mine.
And then I'm going to get Mrs MLG's tweezers. Wicked D's making excuses like.
Oh, whatever.
Right then, so we're just going to stick
Thanks, John.
a couple of these on there. Now these are adhesive as well. So you can put a little bit of glue on should you so wish. I find that you don't really need to. So we'll have a couple just spread around there. Just use the tweezers to spread them out a bit. Give her a little bit of colour on her base. Cool. And then we'll do the larger devil lady. So I'm going to give these ladies bright yellow glowing eyes. So they look properly demonic. What do you reckon? Oh, there.
So how do you decide on your tuft placements then?
So when I look at a base like this one, and I think I think somewhere about there. So what I'm going to do around the back here, so I've made this far too bright, is I'm going to get a couple of the larger ones. I'm going to stick them in the edges there. So I want to break this patch up. So I'm going to stick them around the edges of that lump there.
Oh, you can't come in now, Wicked D.
I am sure that Nathan will recap for you.
Yeah. So I'm going to stick them around the edge of that lump there, so they look like they're growing in the crevices, the little tufts. And then we'll mould them in a little bit with our tweezers, so it looks as if it's growing around the edges of whatever that little lumpy blob is. Let me just finish sticking these on here, and then I will. So, I think that looks okay. Without going over the top, you can go way over the top on tufts and stuff, so we're not going to go crazy. Let's just do this chap and then we'll have a quick refresh. So these bases, the ones that I'm working on now, so these have had a different paint. We haven't really used this one before. This is a Grelin Badlands. So there's two different types of Grelin paint in the technical range. There is a Grelin Earth, which is the one that is very similar to the Mordant Earth. Oh, I missed that tuft. Well done. So Mordant Earth is the black one.
That one I like.
That's the one that you like. And a Grelin Earth is very much the same, so it's quite thin, and that tuft's going to have a little blob of glue because I just can't get it to sit now. I've got it stuck to me thing. So there we go. Just put a tiny little blob of PVA where you want your tuft.
I normally stick my tuff in it. You're supposed to put it on the base.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, I normally stick my tuff in the glue. Are you supposed to put the glue on the base?
Yeah, I would.
I normally have my tuff in my tweezers, dip it in my glue, and then stick it on where I want it.
Yeah,
You do it the other way
yeah,
around.
I might have to. Might have to have a bit more glue because it's not having it. It's too sticky. It's sticking to my tweezers.
Or maybe your tweezers have got some glue. It's because you're trying to do it on stream.
It is.
If you were doing it just normal, it would just be fine.
Yeah. Come on. Play the game. There we go. Right.
Right, so you were saying that base has got...
So this base has got a Grelin Badlands on. So a Grelin Earth is quite thin. The Grelin Badlands is quite thick and I would say lumpy. So it's a really thick consistency, and I will be honest, I didn't realise that it cracked. I thought that it was just a very thick basing material that I could use to fill the gaps in, seeing as my filler had dried out. Well, not dried out, it's gone mouldy. So, seeing as I couldn't use that, I thought I'd use this stuff, and I squidged it in and it went on fine, and it all looked kind of smooth, a bit like the filler that we put on this chap. And then when I woke up this morning, it had all cracked like this. And I thought, well, at least it's got some texture. But that wasn't really what I was going for. So what I was trying to do was to get a smoothed off finish like what I've got on this Oni here. So it's cracked inadvertently, and if you want to replicate this effect, then you can use a Grelin Badlands from Citadel, which is one of their texture paint ranges, and I do think it looks alright, but I painted it. So I painted it black and then we've dry brushed it grey, so you missed that slightly. But anyway, moving on. So we've dry brushed it and we've stuck a couple of tufts on, and then I'm going to paint the edge, and then we'll be good to go with these guys. So this has dried a little bit and it's still ready for a bit of manipulation on this chap. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get an old brush. Sorry about that.
Why don't you just ask me to pass your stuff?
Because you're all the way over there.
Yeah, that's right, Tony. I think we've got some of that kicking around as well. You put that right next to the microphone.
Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this nice scabby old brush, wicked deal like this one.
Not quite as bad, that one.
And then I'm gonna stipple into the surface of our filler. And just give it a few lumps and bumps because we don't want it to be quite so smooth. So as it's just starting to dry, we're just gonna agitate the surface just slightly, just give it a little bit more texture. And we can put a little bit of water on there, just because the filler's dried a little bit more than I wanted. It's so warm in here. It is.
So, like Tony says, there's lots of different styles of the crackle paint, etc. And also we sell different brands, don't we? You don't have to have Games Workshop if you don't like, but I'm sure that Nathan can tell us all about them.
Yeah, so there are crackle paints made by Green Stuff World, and they are very thin. So you paint them on, and they're a bit more of a regular paint consistency than the GW stuff is quite lumpy, squidgy. Is how I would describe it. But the Green Stuff World one is quite thin, and you paint it on, and then it'll like crack over the top. And I'm not aware that Vallejo do any. They do a load of different basing textures, but I don't think any of them do crack. So we've just got like a little bit of more texture in there, and you'll see, if you can see, because it's so bright, that there's a little bit of dimpling, shall we say, from the brush, just to give it a little bit more interest. And then the other thing that you could do, if you wanted to, would be to get a bit of rock or something like this and press that into the surface, so you get a more natural rock texture into your base. Stone out the garden or anything like that. Some people use on larger areas. Some people like to use scrunched up tin foil. Is suitable. And don't worry if you are doing this like I am with a blob of hard sand. If you do drop any bits into the filler, don't worry about that, because it'll just add to the texture. There we go. Something like that. Wunderbar. Cool. Let's get that out of the way. Marvellous. Right. And then, because these minis that we've based here are going to be in the dungeon, we're going to paint the edges of their bases with stone grey, so they match all the rest of the figures for the dungeon. So I think I've got a little bit left there already, but we'll add a little bit more to that, and then we're going to get a standard brush and just paint the edges. Has anybody got any questions of, or is there anything that you would like to know that we might be able to tell you before you, if you're thinking about doing something and you'd like to try it but you haven't got round to it yet or whatever? Is there anything that you would like to ask regarding basing? One thing that I was thinking about showing, but then you might not always want to do it, is, so I thought we'd talk about it instead, is like with this Minotaur where I've done the filler around the base. So while that filler's wet, you can do all sorts of embellishments to the filler. So we've got some little cork pieces that look great as boulders. So while it's the filler's wet, or even before you've put the filler on, you can wedge a couple of these little cork bits on, or bits of slate or anything like that, just to give a little bit more interest into your base, depending on how big your base is. What is the capital of Chile? I have absolutely no idea. I'm sure Google could tell us though. Can the Magic 8 Ball tell us?
It's not a yes or no answer.
Ah, sorry. So, couple of orbits of the base with some stone grey. We'll just finish these off nicely. Tony says Caracas. John the Templar says, how about using 5-minute epoxy for swamp or liquid areas? Ooh, that'd be getting technical. But yes, we could do that in a future stream. We could do some like.
We haven't got any, see.
Yeah, we haven't got any to hand because it's not something that we usually do, but it's certainly something that we could do. I think Goblin Squire has done some of that kind of thing before, hasn't he? Certainly, we can have a look at doing something along those lines. I definitely want to have a play with some of the Green Stuff World UV resin, because you can do all sorts of weird and wonderful things with it. What have we got? Crafty Gobbo says it does work. It's a bit brown where the cheap stuff is, so it works okay for dirty water. Oh, that's the 5-minute epoxy. Ah, right, I understand. And Wicked D says, you just answered my question without needing to ask. I was going to ask, what would you do if you wanted to put stones or boulders? So, yeah, you just either whack them on while the filler's wet, or glue them to the base before you put the filler in, and then squidge it up around them. I find it works better if you whack them in while you've got the filler in on already. It's because if you try and put filler in up to the edges of them, you can very easily get a bit of filler up the facing of your rock or boulder, and then it's hard to clean it off. Yeah, that's true. If you're gonna paint your boulder to look like rock rather than leaving it as rock, for example, then it doesn't really matter, and you can splodge away. For example, I'll show you in a sec, that on this lady's base, so I stuck in a piece of slate here, and then I painted it over black, just a bit of a tiny little bit of slate that I wedged into the basing material as it was drying, and then I painted the whole thing black, and then I dry brushed it over it so it looks like it was like just parted in the thing. Tony says that he's coated in resin at the moment. He's been using loads of it and clear polymer sealant. That sounds interesting. Is that for the diorama, Tony? The coming ashore scene looks awesome, as always.
Pete's in the house.
Pete here. Wowzers. Pete has redeemed 100. Get my trusty water. Good evening, Pete. How are you? Very tired. It's been a hard day's work, Pete.
Working like a dog.
There we go. Nice grey edge on the base. Makes it match the others. Let's just do this lady. Resin for the deep pour and sealant mixed with ISO to make waves and more dramatic ripples. Wow, that sounds cool. I I will have a check on the Discord after the stream and see some progress. My hobby progress today has been I've stuck 2 of the Kill Team Orcs together before the stream, and I'm going to try and get a couple more done after the stream before bedtime. You sure? I do, yeah. Sorry? Yeah, so just working my way around for that second coat around the base with the grey on this lady. So you can paint the edges of the bases whatever colour you want, obviously, to suit yourself. And like I say, if you're painting an army for any game, if you've got all you guys based in the same way, that really can make them appear much more cohesive. So in terms of these chaps, because they are monsters for our RPGs and what have you, so they're all getting the same treatment. We'll just do Sinister one more time, and then she'll be done. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to a couple more of those Deathcore figures. Whack a couple more tufts on those guys before we finish. Might finish kind of on time, and then we'll have a little sum up, shall we, at the end. So once, there we go. She'll do.
Thanks, Moxie.
See you later. Thanks for coming.
We're always in Discord if you want to ask anything, Moxie, don't worry.
Can you mix paint with clear sealant?
Don't know. Give it a go. We'll have to get Tony to do it while he's got his sealant out.
Yeah, don't know. Tony, have you ever mixed? Oh, there you go. Yes, he says. Tony says, yep. Yep. Right then, so we're going to stick some more of these tufts on, and then we'll have a little sum up with what we've done, I think.
Yeah, you show all the bases off and show mine off, and we'll just have a chat about it.
Right, so we're going to stick that one there. He's already got one. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm missing a guy. Where? Oh, he's over there. Missing a guy. Right. So what we're going to do is just liberally apply some of these tufts to our Deathcore minis, and the orcs are going to get the same treatment. They're going to get blue tufts as well, because I want them all to look like they're on the same kind of planet. So like I said before, what I'm going to do, because these tufts are really, really long, so once everything's dry, all the glue's dry and what have you, I'll just go in with a pair of cutters, clippers or scissors, and just trim the longer fronds off these, cut them down a little bit. Have you got a pair of scissors in your drawer, darling?
I've got a huge pair of paper scissors.
Yeah, need some smaller ones, really. Yeah. So the Deathcore guys out of the Kill Team set are all based on 25mm bases, but most of the Orc figures, in fact all but I think the Gretchen and the Squig, are based on 32mm bases, so it gives you a little bit more space to play with for your basing materials. certainly when we've been playing Gorkamorka in the store, I think most of us based our orcs on 32mm bases. We were playing with the newer trucks, the bigger trucks, so we based our figures on the larger bases so we could make them a bit more characterful and do a little bit better job with it. What's going on? So Crafty Gobbos.
He's just helping now John with his question.
Ah, okay, cool. Right then, so use some of those tufts. That guy's got one at the back of his base. There, look, like that. So get those guys ready for. Oh, in fact, we've got loads of time. Let's get some glue and sand put on the bases of these chaps. Show our sanding technique. I don't know if anybody does it any way different. When I first started with models, I used to use flock, like railway modelling flock, basically just like painted sawdust. I got from our local craft shop, and I never really thought about just dipping the thing in, and I used to kind of throw it at it like that, just be going like that, trying to get it on, and then it's only in the past, I don't know, 10 years or some 15 years that I've just realised I don't just like waggle it in, not really losing anything, are you? It's just making sure you get good coverage all around your base. Just get it off the very edges. Peter's redeemed. Hydrate!
Wicked D says, so you stick the flock on with wet paint? I don't understand.
Stick the flock on with wet paint. So this is PVA glue, watered down. I think you missed that bit at the start, didn't you? So this is watered down PVA glue. Not watered down a lot of it. So this is a bit of a blister pack, and if you can tell, there's like maybe 2 millimeters deep of PVA glue in there, and then I just put like a couple of drops out of the tap of water in. So it's not quite as thick as normal glue. So it's PVA glue, and then you put that onto the base, and then there we go. Just
So do you mix water with it to make the glue smoother? Is that
yes,
why?
yeah. Because if you just do it neat out the bottle, it can be quite lumpy, and then you end up with big blobs, and it can be really obvious. If you get big blobs of glue, you get really unnatural looking mounds in your base, because the blob of the glue forms almost like a bubble. So if you thin it.
So it's not just that this hobby likes you to water everything now.
No. And it's just standard PVA glue, so this is you can use basing glue, specific like basing glue that's available from fine retailers such as Mighty Lancer Games. But I'll be perfectly honest with you, this is Little Miss MLG's craft glue.
Would you do the same if you were using a grit or sand? This is sand.
Yeah, this is sand, Wicked D. This is rocky basing sand. And I would use the same technique for anything. So if it's like a flock or sand such as this, or some other kind of textured basing material, I would use the same method for just putting a small layer onto the base. And you can get different grades, obviously, of sand. So if you give it a little shake up, you'll get all the lumps to the top. So if you just flick a few of those to one side, you can get a finer grade of sand or whatever down a little bit lower in your tub. And if you do like I've done there and get it on your chap's foot, you don't necessarily want him to have sand all over the front of his boot. You can just brush that off with a dry brush.
Wicked D says, "Oh, sorry, I thought it was Flock." No worries. He was talking about Flock while he was adding the sand, wasn't he? That's why.
Yeah.
No problemo.
Yeah, because I used to use sand when I first started modelling when I was about 10 or whatever it was, when I started on Space Marines, and I used to use the railway flock, but it just doesn't look great compared to some of the basic materials that are available now, all the different coloured sands and other things that you can get your hands on. We've got some wonderful weird stuff in the cupboard, haven't we? Hi, look God, how you doing? Yeah, let's just have a little recap of where we are. So here is our base that we've done with Look God says Goblin Green bases. That was because everybody used to paint Goblin Green. You can't even get Goblin Green from GW anymore, but everyone used to paint the edges of their bases Goblin Green and use green flock on the top. So where were we? So this is the base. So we've used a dished base, very similar to this. This is a GW base. So as you can see, they're designed to be that way up because they've got like this little sloped edge on. But most bases, like these Reaper ones, have a square edge. So you can turn it upside down, use your recess to hide the moulded base on the figure, and then use some filler to build up the gap in between. And then what we've done there is used a paintbrush to stipple the surface and a little bit of rock to just add a little bit of texture over that. And then once that is dry, then we'll be able to paint it, dry brush it, stick a couple of tufts on it, and it'll look absolutely fantastic. So, like these ones. So here are some that I have done over the course of the stream. So these, we'd run out of, or our filler had gone mouldy, so we've used a Gorellen Badlands on these, which is why they've got these lovely deep cracks in. And then we've stuck some Gamer's Grass tiny tufts on in a couple of places. Once it's had so I painted over the entire base with black, even in the recesses, watered that down slightly to get it into the recesses. And then we gave it 2 dry brushes, one with stone grey, which is the same colour that we've painted the edges of the bases, and a second dry brush with weathered stone, wherever I put that, there, weathered stone, in camera, weathered stone, and then get this nice stone grey finish, yeah, on the basis. So we've done these 3 figures that we've painted over the past couple of weeks with that technique, so they're cool. And then otherwise we've got the GW figures, the Death Corps of Krieg from the Kill Team starter set, and just a very basic, so we stuck some Vallejo blue tufts on there for Alien World, and then just some regular sand on the bases just to finish them off, and then edging of brown, which I'm going to go around again because there's a little light spot there. Now you can paint over the sand and then dry brush it up a different colour, but I'm just going to leave it as it is. And once I've got these guys finished off, I think they're going to look absolutely top. Just going to trim these blue bits down a little bit with a pair of scissors, once everything's dry. But aside from that, fairly happy. Look God 84 says, loving seeing the new Bones minis making their way to the store. Sitting here waiting to see if and when Brindwind's stuff appears. So, Mrs MLG is going to be adding swag box minis individually to the web store tomorrow, which we've gone through this afternoon. So there's some pretty cool stuff in amongst those.
The piggy will be on.
So the piggy will be on. So yeah, some of those are pretty special. And the Brindwind expansion, there certainly will be a couple of minis from that, but we haven't gone through those yet in detail to see what we're going to do with those. But there certainly will be a few of those things going on, like the Ogre Porter and a couple of the other bits and pieces. They will make it to the web store eventually. So, I think we're going to call it a day there. And I'm going to... sorry? Yeah. No, I will. So, the Grog Hog, that's it, John the Templar.
That's the one. He comes with a guy as well. He does come with a chef who is awesomely detailed. It's just that I don't really like painting people.
Right.
So
So trying to paint the pig instead. So I'm just going to finish up the bases on these last three Krieg guys that are lurking here at the edge of the painting table. I'm going to finish up those chaps. I'm going to leave the base on this Minotaur until I come to paint him later in the month or at the start of next month, depending on how we get on. So I'm going to paint his base at the same time paint the mini. And I need to finish painting the eyes on the two Devil Women so I can get those guys submitted to the RCL with my duo and trio. So let's just finish off by looking once again at Mrs MLG's amazingly painted crackled bases here. What, are you planning on basing any figures on these, darling?
No, I was just doing them to show people how to do the face.
Yeah, so this is using the Citadel Mordant Earth paint over the top of a mixture of Tesseract Glow and Hexray Flame. Did you paint that over a white background?
No, I just whacked it on.
Oh, so that's
This
just
is
neat.
me.
That's just neat over the top of a black base.
Yeah, just whacked it on, be right. So it's a TikTok, but it's also on YouTube and Instagram and everywhere like that. But the whole process is available for people to see if they wanted to. But yes, I've never been a massive fan of basing like priming stuff, have I?
So I guess what I really intended should have done was paint this Devil Lady's base similar to this, shouldn't I? But then
You didn't.
no, but then it wouldn't have fitted in with the rest of the dungeon dwellers. So.
No, and also you want her to stand out, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, so. Yeah, so the red and yellow one is just holly berry red and probably pale saffron, knowing me. Just Reaper paints, they're not glow or anything, they're just normal Reaper paints.
And they look awesome. So they're cool, and you can get all these, all the paints used in these products from Mighty Lancer Games. So, thank you everybody for joining us. Tomorrow night I will be painting orcs from Kill Team. What will you be painting tomorrow night?
Oh, probably still this.
Mrs MLG is doing an amazing job on one of the orc themed terrain pieces from Kill Team, and probably still doing that tomorrow night. So join us tomorrow at 7, and then we'll be doing a bit more of that. And then at 8 o'clock on Wednesday, I may possibly still be painting orcs, but that's cool because these new orc models are awesome. Here's the Knob from the Kill Team box, who is particularly cool. You can build him in a couple of different ways, but I decided to build him with the Power Claw because orcs look awesome with Power Claws, and looks like he's got a good sneer going on. Somebody said that they thought that this chap looked like Carl Weathers out of Predator. Well, I don't know. I think it's only because he's wearing a forage cap, but hey ho. Anyway, so love these guys. These are the ones I've got put together so far. Trying to get the rest of them sorted, ready for tomorrow. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you again soon.